Hey everyone, this is Dr. B from Steps to the Future coming to you with this week's C3 with Dr. B. I am so thrilled as always to have my kitchen cabinet, as I'm going to call them, with me on this call. These are women that I admire greatly, who I love their advice, their support, their encouragement. And we have a strong relationship where we all trust one another. So, this is a great group for me to be with and for us to have this conversation. Now, before I bring on my folks, I do want to let people know in Cumberland County that if you are a senior, that the Cumberland County Community Foundation has a scholarship. The scholarship will be closing soon. It will be closing this month. So please go on the Cumberland County Community Foundation website, look for the scholarships, and start applying, folks, because we really need to help you pay for college. So make sure you do that. So that is my public service announcement for today. Now I am going to bring on my folks. So it is so great seeing you ladies here. For those of you who do not know who is with me, I always like to have them introduce themselves, and I am going to call on you based on how I see you on my screen. So, the first person I see on my screen at the top is Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Lisa Thomas here. I am out here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and my business is called Educated Mindset Consulting. I help high school transfers who want to go to from community college to universities, as well as four-year to four-year, as well and career changers. So happy to be here to have a discussion about college visits.
Thank you so much. Antoinette, you're next.
Hello, I'm Antoinette Batiste. My business is Educational Pathways with Antoinette Batiste. I'm based in San Jose, California. I work with high school students who are looking to go to college and also community college students looking to transfer to four-year institutions. It's always fun to be here. Thank you, Dr. B.
You are welcome. April.
I'm April Paris Joseph, Paris Educational Solutions. I also work with high school students looking to go to college. I have a particular affection for the kids going through the recruited athlete process. Um, yeah.
Thank you. Angela.
You would think I could find the mute by now. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Bird. I am located just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. I too work with high school students, and my business is Next Level Consultant.
Thank you, Angela. Amy.
Hello, I'm Amy Jasper. My business is My College Fit. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and I work with high school students who are looking at four-year institutions or students planning to transfer to one.
Thank you so much. Rosellen.
Hello, my name is Rose Ellen McCumbee. I am based in Oviedo, Florida, which is just outside of Orlando. I enjoy serving homeschoolers, student athletes, and those high school students looking to go to college. My company is Beyond Ivy Educational Consulting.
Yes, we got to make sure we get that in. And for those of you that are new to our broadcast, we are all members of the Independent Educational Consultants Association. And we want to say congratulations to Angela Bird and to April Paris Joseph for recently becoming professional members of IECA. Yay! That is so great. So, what that means is we have two levels. We have associate and we have professional. So these two folks have done all the work and the college visits and the letters of recommendation in order for them to move to professional, which is great. Which is great. So tonight we want to talk to you about beyond the brochures, college visits, making the most of college visits. Now I know once students start looking at colleges and they start visiting or they start emailing or getting information, those beautiful brochures come in and everything looks wonderful. So what we want to do tonight is just talk about a few things that we think students should be thinking about beyond those brochures. So first of all, we're going to start. And again, let me just give a caveat here. We know that not everyone can visit a college. But for those who are able to go out and visit a college, these are some of the things that we recommend for those students. So the first one is plan ahead. So anyone want to speak to that one?
I will.
Well, oh,
I'm going to start calling on people like in
uh,
class.
that's why I was jumping in first. I didn't want to be called on. I guess what I would say about planning ahead, I'm a huge proponent of students doing research as part of the overall process, and particularly when they're planning to go and visit a school. And research means really kind of taking that deep dive into the school and identifying beyond just your major and what dorms might look like, but just think about the activities, the clubs, community service opportunities, and those kinds of things. And so, if a student has done a good job of research up front, then when they hit campus to visit, they can go and peel back the layers of the onion a little bit more on those things that are important to them.
Right. I so agree with that. It always not irks me, but I'm always like, ooh, you didn't do any research when I'm on a tour and a student will ask the tour guide or in the admission session, so do you have biology here as a major? And I'm like, well, didn't you look that up before you came to this school? Look those things up. I mean, there are so many things that students can find out about a school from the website, from social media prior to going on campus. So planning ahead is really essential to what's going on. One of the other things that I think is really important with doing that research is try to visit when students are actually on campus. I know a lot of people like to go during summer breaks or when around their family vacation time or when they're out of town and traveling, but it really makes a difference when you get to see the vibrancy of the campus when students are there. You don't get a good feel, but if that's the only time that you can visit, I definitely think that you still should go visit if you can. Did anyone want to add anything to that?
Well, piggybacking on the research part, you really can make the visit your own, depending on how they structure, if it's an official visit or an unofficial visit, if you've been invited or you're just coming on your own, you have done the research, then you can really take charge and get the most out of the experience for yourself, because it is about your time at the school and what works for you.
Yeah.
Really is the very first step in terms of you maximizing your time on the visit.
I agree. You're going to pay all that money to travel out there or wherever, just the time and effort to get there. Make sure that you use it as much as you can, every bit of it. So, the next step that we recommend for folks is to take a campus tour and take the schedule one. Join, you can go online, you can sign up for a tour. Make sure you do that tour. What else do you think is important about doing that campus tour?
I'll answer that. One thing I always tell students is that even though a tour guide is representing the school and that is their job, you need to try to disassociate the actual tour guide from the school, because everyone can have a bad day. When my daughter was going through this process, she and I joked that we got every bad tour guide on the East Coast, and it's and everyone's just not great at their job on every day. So if you do come across a tour guide who may not, have the energy or information that you would like or expect, you can't, let that define the school. And I can honestly say, I was probably one of my worst tour experiences was at a school that is highly regarded. And so that's just my advice. But hopefully you will have a great tour guide and they will be full of information. And also know that if you have a particular interest, just because the tour guide may not know about that on campus doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that may not be, their interest.
Right. So true. So true. There's so many times when students that I've worked with have come back and said, well, the tour guide this or the tour guide that. I said, that tour guide is not going to be your best friend on campus.
Mhm.
So take what they say, and think, like you said, Amy, about everything else that you got had an opportunity to see. So it really is important to not let the personality of the tour guide. But sometimes you get tour guides that are like amazing, and you're like, oh, I know there have been times I've been on tours. I'm like, I think I need to come back to go to this school because the tour guides really did a great job of selling the school. So
Yeah.
we're going to move on here. Now we know we have some people watching, so please, please, please join in the conversation. We love to hear your questions, your comments, um, as you're here. And those of you that are out there watching, please turn around and share this with people that you know. If you're not watching it live, we thank you for watching it on the replay, and we still welcome your questions and comments. So moving on, here's one of the other things that students can do when they go visit a college. Check out the academic departments. I don't think people know that this is something that they can do. So would someone like to speak to that?
I'll take that one.
Thank you.
So, depending on what you're interested in, not even necessarily if you know what major, but if you're interested in something in particular, like maybe biology, chemistry, engineering, if they're going past the building on the tour, ask to go in. Sometimes you might not be able to, but at least you can find out more information. You can ask the tour guide. Sometimes there's admissions people there that you could also speak with. But your time is actually supposed to be to ask as many questions as possible. And going to see a specific department will provide some clarity. If you think you're interested in a particular major and you find out that there's something that's not quite what you thought it was going to be, it's your opportunity to check out something else. You don't have to be stuck with what you thought you needed to go in with in the beginning.
So true. And another thing I would suggest while you're looking at those academic departments, if you've done that planning ahead in your research, like Antoinette mentioned earlier, see if you can set up an appointment with a professor that's in that department that you can talk to so you can get a feel for what the department is all about, what the expectations are. In doing that research, you can certainly go online and you can see the faculty members that are in each of the departments. You can see what courses they teach. Some of the colleges will sometimes allow you to sit in on a class. So that's something you can ask. I mean, all they can do is say no, but you'll never know until you ask. So do that. Be proactive. Find out as much as you can about what's going on in that academic department. And like Angela said, even if that's something you're not certain of 100%, that's okay because it's just as important to know what you don't want to do as it is knowing what you do want to do. So
Yes.
again,
And,
visiting
and
those
Dr. B,
academic,
can I add one
yes,
more thing to that too? Is that
sure.
sometimes even the campus stores are based on the departments. So when you're looking at the general tours, look for tours that are department based because that could be something that's it's a gold mine, when you get to be in the department before you even join the school. And you'll hear from the faculty just as much as you would do if you try to reach out on your own. But reach out and see, looking when you do your research and you go into admissions, look for events and look for college tours or campus tours. Look to see if there's one assigned to your department and join those because you get more insight about what they're offering in that regard.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate that because that is, again, that's important.
And one thing I'd also like to add is by going, even if walking through those academic departments, look at what's on the bulletin boards. Often there's information about internships or fellowships or other kinds of programs. You can see if there are, like if there's student groups related to the major and those kinds of things. So you you also pick up a vibe of what it's like to be in that department. So I find that to be very, very helpful. Even
Yeah.
as a counselor, when I'm, on tour, I find myself taking pictures because it's like, oh, okay, this school, this department in this school thinks that this topic is important, or look at, was mentioned, events or speakers that are coming and
Mhm.
things like that. All of that helps to give you a real sense of kind of the vibe of a department and of the school.
Yes, so true, so true. Sometimes on those boards, you see opportunities for study abroad that are based on that particular department. So again, you get the opportunity to see what's available for you within that particular academic setting. So one of the other things, this one always interests me, dorms and residence halls. It's so important that you get an opportunity to see what the living conditions are going to be like. Anybody would like to talk about if you're on a campus and you get to see a residence hall or halls?
It's nice to see one, but I also think students need to be discerning about which hall are they being shown. So they love to show off the nicest thing that they've got, and some of these are really, really nice. But you need to ask: is this a freshman dorm? Is this something you get as an upperclassman? And get a feel for what are the different layers and different types of housing that's available, and where what you're looking at relative to what else you might actually experience as a freshman. Um, there's a couple campuses where you have no choice.
Mm,
And I had a young lady go to a university last year, and she picked a beautiful housing and did not get it, and is living in a quad, a one room quad.
ooh, ooh,
She's fine. You kids, you guys, you're young, you're fine, but
right. Tough,
know
tough
what
it
you're
out.
know what you're. Yeah, I kind of feel like tough it out.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And again, looking at residence halls and dorms, and again, this goes back to doing your research ahead of time. Look at the different price points. Families are often, right now, college is expensive. And when you look at the cost of attendance and you break that down, the dorms and residence hall, that's a hefty chunk of that cost of attendance. So check to see, is this a tiered system? If I live in this type of system, does that cost more or does that cost less? Again, is housing available to me on campus all 4 years? Or
Mhm.
is it just guaranteed freshman year, freshman and sophomore year? Or is it automatically assumed that once you get to your junior year, you're going to be living off campus? And if you are going to be living off campus, where is it? How close is it to campus? Is there transportation available?
How much
Um,
does it cost?
how much does it cost? Exactly, because April was just talking about being in that quad. You might be in some place with more than a few people trying to pay for that rent if you have to move somewhere off campus. So again, there's so many questions. And one of the things where if you want to kind of tie it in with the academic department, a lot of colleges now have the learning and living communities where you can live in a residence hall or dorm based on a specific specialty. So sometimes everybody that's majoring in Spanish might live in the same dorm or the same floor. It could be language based, it could be interest based, so many different opportunities. It could be an honors dorm or an honors floor. It all depends. So when you're on your tour and they're talking about the residence hall, ask about if they have learning and living communities and what that would mean for you as a first year student and what the requirements are to be able to join one of those communities.
And can I add one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the part of the country, you may want to really get to basics like, do freshmen have AC? And, things like that. Because some freshman dorms don't have it. And when school starts in August, it may
Mm-hmm.
matter and it may not. But
Right. That is so true. I'm thinking of one school where one of my students was attending and she got there and she called me. She said, Dr. B, it's hot in here. They don't have air conditioning. And I didn't bring a fan because I thought this dorm was going to have air conditioning. So needless to say, her family was on Amazon right away, getting a fan to the room, because it was pretty hot. And when you're in those little rooms and brick walls, and you're in the South, it can get a little stifling. Can get a little stifling. So again, it's really important to ask those types of questions.
Mhm.
And again, for those of you that are watching in, if you'd like to share something with us, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please go right to the comment section. Make this a conversation with all of us out here. So one of the other areas you want to think about when you're on a college visit, the dining halls. We got to eat. Have got to eat. So would
I
anyone like to
particularly
speak?
like this one, in all honesty, because sometimes when you're on those tours and you get the smell of breakfast or lunch that might be cooking, depending on the time of day that your tour is, um, and also being able to see what is being served to the students, what students are in there eating, is it empty during breakfast? Is there, if you're there during lunch, what types of meals are being provided, the selection. um, I know some students might think that after a while all the food does not taste great, but when you're going on your tour, you want to make sure you're going to be able to, eat something and not always have to order food. So if you have any allergies, gluten free, if you're a vegetarian, you just want to make sure that as you're on these tours, you're making sure that you can survive when you're going to college.
Mhm. And then
Oh, go ahead.
inquire about the different types of meal plans that may be available to you. You may not have to buy the most expensive meal plan, or if you're a commuter, do you still have to be on the meal plan? But as was mentioned by Dr. B and many others, finding and asking the right questions will really benefit you, even in the dining hall.
Yes, especially in the dining hall,
Mhm.
especially in the dining hall. And one of the things that you'll notice when you're on these tours that's related to eating is there will be many places like, kids are always thrilled when there's a Chick-fil-A on campus. You'll find that a lot of times you can use your dining dollars or whatever they call them at that particular school to eat at these other restaurants that are affiliated with the school, whether it's a Starbucks, a Chick-fil-A, and then check to see, can you use your dining dollars in town at certain restaurants? Is there a discount for students? That's really nice sometimes, to be able to go off campus and eat somewhere else, but just check to see, is this something I'm able to do with my dining card that is for campus? Anything else? I mean, I know I'm right with you, Angela. I like to check out the food and see what's available, and because I don't know about you guys, well, I went to college way back in the Stone Age, and we didn't have the food. It left a lot to be desired some days, um, and but you had to do what you had to do because that was what was there. And when I go on college visits now and see all the choices they have, I'm like, you didn't have that choice. You took that Salisbury steak and mashed potatoes or whatever else they had that day, and that's what you had. And you had to be satisfied with it unless you wanted to get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So definitely check out all the food options and all the different opportunities that you have for dining. And the next thing that we want to make sure you do when you go on a college visit, the student union and the campus center. Why is that important to visit? Do they even have a student union?
I think it's a great place to kind of people watch, and I mean that in a positive way, but to just really see who's there. Oftentimes, you also just get to see what's happening on campus. They may usually clubs will have tables set up for different events, bulletin boards, as was mentioned earlier. Is that what is in the student center? Is that where the bookstore is? Is that where one of the a place you can eat? Is it the center of campus? Do people hang out there? All of those things.
Right. And that's so important. And how long does it stay open? Like, is this
Hmm.
the place that you can go to, at the last minute if you need something, if they have like a campus store in there? Can you
Hmm.
run out at 9 or 10 o'clock at night to buy something that you need? And going along with what you said, Amy, we actually have a question from Angela Lewis. Angela, thank you for joining us. And she says, what do you suggest for a first generation potential student to do to get information about organized tours? She said she's thinking about tours that are offered by sororities or fraternities or other organizations.
Oh, she means, I see. She means,
Yes. Yeah, if a first generation
I,
student wanted
I
to
see.
go on an organized tour rather
Mhm.
than, just going with their
Right.
families.
Right.
Yeah, because I know here in Fayetteville State, with their TRIO program, they do organized tours. They take the students on tours, and
Hmm.
they get an opportunity to, be on the road a couple of days to see different schools.
Hmm.
So again, how do students find out about that? Is it reaching out to your local chapter of your sorority, your fraternity, see if that's available to them? I know there are some organizations that, you can go online and they will put together college tours for you, which sometimes tend to be a little pricey. So it depends upon your family circumstances, what you can afford. Um, but yeah, that's a good thing. Looking at organizations, who's doing that. I know one time I was saying, maybe that's what I should do. Get together with some people and do a tour. But I'm like, oh Lord, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, if you're trying to find something on a campus with a particular organization, it goes back to the planning ahead. You've got
Mm,
to, do some research, figure out who's the president of that fraternity or sorority, and reach out to them and see if maybe somebody will meet with you or have a conversation or walk you around a bit. But I would always, always encourage signing up for the standard tour, to make sure you just touch on the generals of the university or college campus.
right.
And
And
I
I
think
could like add to that too. Oh,
Go ahead, Lisa.
no, thank you. I was going to add to that that some of the schools that your child or student might be interested in also may offer flying events for students to come and visit the campus. So check out those activities. So go to admissions on the school's website, look up campus tours. But if you don't naturally see flying days for students who want to come and visit, and they usually offer to first gen underrepresented students sometimes, but just a group of students who want to come see the campus, look for those opportunities. They usually fly the student in, put them up in the dorms or resident hall for the weekend, and then the students get to really interact with different organizations or activities while on campus. That's a great way for students to connect that way through these flying opportunities that college offers.
That is so, so true. I'm
And
actually
I'm
going to put
I'm
a
trying to
link.
think of the organization. I don't know. Green Light comes to mind, but I'm
College
not. College
College
Green Light
Green Light. Yep.
Yeah.
I
is
am
an
going to.
organization that
Mhm.
usually has a really good list of those kinds of fly-in programs, often targeted for low-income first generation students of color, um, young women, especially like in the STEM fields. Um, um, that is one source. I think community-based organizations. So if there are college access programs in your area, then checking with them because they often know, because they often are sending groups of their students on college tours. I know here, being in California, one of the things that folks look for here are like HBCU tours, because there's only one Black college on, like in the state of California. So that is something that's highly desired, is to find organized HBCU tours, they exist, and I think also checking with Black Greek letter organizations also, they may have partnered with tour companies or folks that are doing some college tours as well. A student could check with their counselor at their high school, because a lot of times information is sent to the high schools to counselors, and sometimes that information just sits. Sometimes some counselors are very good about getting it out, but again, just ask the question. Another, you think about, like, sort of Jack and Jill folks, just think of people in your network who may have kids who've gone to college, and just asking, well, how did your child find out about or get to go visit these schools, and, tap into your own kind of personal network too, to see how people did it, so you don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel or go it alone.
Right. So true. So true. And there's the URL for College Greenlight, the program that Antoinette was talking about that does fly-ins. It seems like every time I go on this site, the name has changed. Another company owns it or something. So Capex is now called Appley. So that's a whole new thing.
Mhm.
So
What
again,
what was that, Belinda?
so Capex is now called Appley.
Okay.
Appily. So when you go on College Greenlight, instead of it being Capex up in the corner, it says Appley now.
Hmm.
Yeah, the other organization I was thinking of specifically to Angela's question, and I think they've changed the name too. I'm First,
Mm,
and they put out a book every year of colleges that are very friendly to first generation and supportive of first generation students. But I think they're called another name now too. So that is another resource. But I also want to mention, in terms of kind of student union campus center, and I know that in today's climate, they are, shall we say, they're being challenged and they're disappearing, and that's cultural centers. They do still exist, and even if they're not a standalone cultural center, ask around and find out where, if I'm a Black student on this campus, is there a place where I'm going to find community? Is there a place where, are there programs in those kinds of things? And so I think, even while it may be, feel like, not to be political, kind of swimming upstream a bit, in terms of a lot of cultural centers on college campuses going away, but I do think that that's really, really important, to seek out that information too, if that is something that is important to you as a student. When you think about, is this school going to be a good fit for me? Am I going to be able to find my people? Am I going to be able to build my community?
mhm. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And let me get us all back here on the screen again. And the organization that you were talking about, I'm First. So this is the organization that's for first generation students, and that is the URL there. So they also, as Antoinette said, they have a wonderful resource guide that gives you information about what types of resources are available to a first generation student on particular campuses. So while you're on your campus visit, if you've noticed that college is listed in I'm First, um, ask questions, find out what's going on.
Mhm.
And Angela responded and said, "Thank you. Your responses are rich and very informative." So thank you, Angela, for joining in. Now, so we're moving on from our dorms, our dining halls, the student union, and we're getting ready to go to my favorite part. Well, one of my favorite parts of a campus, the library, the place with all the books. When I'm on a college tour, people will say, the a lot of times the tour guide will say, "Well, do you want to go in the library?" And people go, "No, no, it's just books." I'm like, "No, we have to go in the library. I don't care. We just have to go in and suck up the air and just walk around and just get the vibe and smell the books, and then we can leave." So again, going to a library, but again, finding out, so many libraries are changing.
Mhm.
The technology that is available in libraries, so it's more than books. You may find 3D printers in the library that you're able to use. You may have a library similar to the Hunt Library here at North Carolina State, where the books aren't on the shelves. You go and you put in the book that you want, and this robotic arm goes and gets it from somewhere, and it comes down a chute and comes to you. And what's kind of cool though is you can see it do it through the window that they have, the partition that they have there. So again, go and find out what the library has to offer. How long is it open? And some people will say, well, you can do everything online, but sometimes you need to be out of your dorm room and you need to go into a quiet place and do your work.
Mhm.
Um, So for me, libraries are essential part of your college visit.
I
Anyone want to
agree.
add to that?
I agree. I want to jump in on this one. This is also one of my favorite spots on a college campus is the library for two reasons. One, not only is it a place where you can get out of your dorm rooms and get things done, but it's also the places on campus where you can actually take your meal and get your work done. And so colleges and their libraries have changed significantly. There's spaces where you can sit and eat a meal and just work and keep going. Bathrooms, they have rooftop decks now where students want to, get some sun while they're working, but they're still technically in the library. I love going to college campus to have more than one libraries as well, where they're themed, right? They're based on mechanical engineering, or they're based on, rare books, or they're based on just different things. And it's just a world or a space where students can get to know even their exact field a little bit better because their library is designed around that concept or that field or discipline in mind. But the libraries have stepped up. It's the place to be on many, many campuses, and encourage students to participate in that process with those schools.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Thank you, Lisa, for talking so highly about one of my favorite spots on a college campus. Anyone else want to add anything about libraries?
That sometimes you can find the writing center at the libraries when you go. A lot of times they're located right there. So while you're struggling to, do an essay, or you think you might need help, it's right there. You don't even really have to leave. They also have great meeting rooms. A lot of times they have smart boards. They have, dry erase boards. They have glass that you can write all over. So you and your fellow students can meet up, do homework together, do a project together. It's just great to see all of that when you're on a campus tour and you're in the library. And most recently, I've also noticed that a lot of the libraries have, say something happens to your laptop and you just need to check out a laptop quickly. That's where you go to check out a laptop, and you use it during that time. And then, you use your student ID to check it out, and you use it while you're in the library. And before you leave the library, check it back in. So that way you're still keeping up with your studies. So I found that to be quite an interesting thing when you're going on these college campus tours.
Yeah, that is so true. The technology that you can check out. That's so true. Our next one, this is becoming a favorite of mine because I love working out now, but the sports facilities. You want to check out, you don't have to be a D1, D2, D3, any kind of an athlete on a team in order to use the sports facilities. You want to find out what's available on campus for wellness, because we all want to stay healthy, and you can't just go to class and eat, because you're going to get that freshman 15, as they call it. So you need to have a place to go to work it off. So go and find out what's available at the sports facilities. Who can go into those sports facilities? At what time are those sports facilities available? Is there an extra fee? Do they have a pool? So there's so many types of questions that you'd want to ask about sports facilities. Anyone like to add something to that?
But I would just say also, if you're just into watching the team sports, that you want to know where those are at, how do you get there? I know for a few athletes that I've worked with over the years, it's really important to them that those facilities are on campus in the heart of everything, because they want it to be integral to student life. So, is it outside of a dorm, or do you have to catch a bus? Kind of questions. Um, yeah, just depending on what matters to you.
Yeah, that's so true. I know when I went to a large Southern university, I was floored by the sports facilities. I'm like, are you serious? I mean, I know my whole tour group, we were walking around with our mouths hanging open because we could not believe the amenities that were in this sports facility. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And that was just one of, I think, two or three facilities that they had on that campus. But that main one was something I said, be kind of hard going to. I would just be hanging out in the gym all the time because they had some great equipment in there.
Well, I remember Belinda being on a tour with you on a campus in the Southwest, and we were amazingly impressed with the intramural facilities that they had. And so it's again, especially for students who are thinking, well, I'm not sure if I want to, continue my sport, but I might, would like the opportunity to play. So to, just for recreational purposes or whatever. So that was, I just remember that being a big surprise too. But again, it's part of that research and, as the students kind of sorting out what's important to them. So.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned intramurals because that's another part of the sports world that we want students to think about. Like again, you don't have to be one of the members of the varsity team or what have you, but between club sports and intramurals, there's definitely something for everyone to do on campus. So there's no reason that you can't stay in shape. There's no reason you can't get healthy because there is something for everyone on every single level in that arena. And here's another one that I think people overlook a lot: career services. I think it's important to find out as a first year student or as a student visiting, what does your career services offer? Now, we know they all offer you opportunities to write resumes and cover letters and what have you. But what else? Do they help you with internships? Because we know now that getting an internship is almost necessary to become employed when you graduate from college. So, is that something that they'll help you with in career services? Will they help you make connections with alumni? Because most colleges, well, just about all colleges, they do have an alumni network. Is that something that they will facilitate for you? So find out about that. One of the things that I had not thought of until it happened to a relative, um, she had graduated from college, and maybe about 2 or 3 years out, she really needed some career services assistance. And I said, well, reach back out to your college. And when she did, she was told that, oh, because she had graduated more than a year ago, that if she wanted services, she now had to pay for them. So check to see, are your career services lifetime? Or do they have an expiration date before a fee is charged? Because that is the way at some colleges. So you want to make sure that you're getting every bit of those tuition dollars that you paid and that you're using those services. So for people who don't know, I'm president of the North Carolina Career Development Association. So we just had our spring conference this past Friday at Shaw University. And we were able to get Shaw because the director of the Career Center was able to get the space for us. But as we were in one of the classrooms, one of the in the career services area, I found myself doing that thing where, oh, look at this brochure. Let me pick up this brochure. So I think by the time I left that room, I had 20 brochures. So when you're traveling or when you're visiting a college and you go into the Career Center, look at the different handouts that they have. They have some fabulous handouts on. Maybe it's about how to use LinkedIn. Maybe it's about networking. It could be about writing your resume. It could be study strategies or what have you. But whatever they have, those materials are put out there for visitors. Just let them know that you're interested in taking some of those materials, and then go back and use them and read them. You don't have to wait until you're a student at that school to use those materials. And again, just check, what do they do? Do they have assessments? Do they help you with interview prep? I know at a lot of colleges now, interview prep is, you get video interview prep where you get the opportunity to record yourself and get feedback on how well you come across on a video, because so many companies are doing video interviews as part of their recruitment, and you really need to know how to present yourself in a video. Are you looking, directly at the camera? Are you, what do you have on from the waist up? Or, you definitely probably should just fully have professional wear on, because you never know if you have to stand up. And you don't want to be embarrassed to say, oh man, I've got my sweatpants on, so I'm good from the waist up, but from the bottom down, I'm pretty casual. So again, think about that. What else would you like to say to folks?
If I can
I
jump in.
think,
Oh, sorry. I think it's important to know how students access the Career Services Center. So, is this a self driven process? Do students have to reach out, go themselves, make the appointments? Or is having a Career Services advisor part of the first year experience? And everyone is assigned someone who you're connecting with, who's checking on you and making sure you're going through this process and doing it well. Depending on what kind of student you are, some kids are super proactive and others need that extra kind nudge to get moving on this stuff.
Yeah, it's so true. So true.
yeah, and I also want to add that along the lines of what kind of services are provided, sometimes career services are doing something called letter services. And what that means is when you're sophomore, junior, senior, and a faculty member has a letter they want to write as a recommendation for you, they have a service where they can put that letter on tap, let's call it on tap, or on in a deposit or repository for you, so that anytime you need it 5 years after you've left, that service is still available to you. So going back to something Dr. B said about getting services after you've graduated, sometimes if you join the Alumni Association, that's available to you, or just the fact that you've been part of that school, that's available to you at no additional cost beyond your alumni dues. But again, that letter service is something that you want to start building up, not when you're ready to graduate, but start building that repository of information up, to support you when you go through your job search or grad school.
So true, so true. And also check with the career services, because I know at some colleges they have career services by major that is specifically for the business students, specifically for communication students, specifically for art students. So ask that question: are the career services in general, or do you have the career services by academic departments? That gives it a whole different flavor. The internships look different. The opportunities to network look different. They're very specific to what you're doing. So ask those questions. Now, if you've done your research ahead of time, you'll probably know whether or not they have that, but you have to go on the career services page, which I don't know how many high school students are going on those pages as they're getting ready to do their research. But go on those pages and find out. And then when you're on campus, you can ask more specific questions about those particular services. But it is important. It is important because, as I always tell my kids, whether you go to a 4-year school, 2-year school, the military, or what have you, you're all going to work. So you need to know how to do that, what that looks like, and get as much knowledge and information about that as possible.
And I wanted to add before we move on, it's also a place where you can find out about career fairs and what employers tend to recruit from your school that you're looking into. Some schools tend to have a very strong pipeline with certain schools. I'm sorry, with certain schools. Some employers have a pipeline with certain schools. So going to the career services office, find out who's recruiting, look at the skills that they're looking for. Maybe it's a chance for you to upskill if you need, additional help in trying to make sure that you are producing yourself as the best applicant possible. But I think it's a really good place to find out, what employers are looking for, what employers are, seeking out students from the school that you're interested in.
Yeah, so true. So true. And sometimes if you go on their website and doing your research, there may be a page where they'll have the logos of the companies that they that attend their career fairs or where students now have been employed. So check that out because you want to see, what is my future going to look like. So make sure that you use that opportunity to find that out. And last but not least, and these items that we're going over, these aren't the only 10 things that you're going to do. I mean, there's so many pieces, but these are standardized things that you need to do as part of your tour. And one of my favorites is talking to students who aren't part of the official tour, who are not the tour guide. Anyone want to speak to that?
This is my favorite thing for kids to do.
Yeah.
And I made all of my own children do this. And I think it's really important for parents to realize, number one, step away when your student is doing this. But two, I asked the students to just kind of walk around campus after the tour and look until you see people that you identify with. You know what other kids look like that you're like, oh, I'd be friends with you, or you're like me. And just go up and ask them, what is life like here on this campus being me? I'm being you. Like, what is this experience like for us? And hear what they have to say. But parents have to get out of the way. And then I really, really tell my athletes, especially my BIPOC athletes, that they need to ask the coach that's recruiting them to let them be alone in a room with their co-athletes that are like them, and have those private conversations about what is this like? How are you treated on campus? How are you viewed? By professors, by fellow students, everything, and see what that is. But the students tend not to like this unless they're particularly outgoing. But if they will do it, it is particularly informative to them about what decision they're making.
That is so true, and you can find out some such great information. I know one time I was on a tour, and Antoinette, we might have been on that tour together because we were at Agnes Scott. And I remember asking a young woman, and this was as we were touring, we had gone into the bookstore, and I went back and I asked her, I said, would you mind if I ask you a couple of questions about your experience here? And she goes, no, go right ahead. And I said, what other schools did you apply to? And she had named, women's HBCU and a couple of other schools. And I said, well, what made you choose this school? And she's talked about the merit aid, the financial aid that they gave to her, that they awarded to her, so that it made it very, very affordable for her family to go there. Because at first I'm like, oh, you didn't go to such and such. And she goes, no. And she felt that the atmosphere was a good fit for her, that the academics were a good fit for her. But she said definitely the affordability factor. Now, that's something we wouldn't know if we didn't talk to students or you know, ask that information. You wouldn't know. So that was when that school was kind of put on my radar as far as a school that gives really good merit aid. So and need based aid. So I always keep that in mind. It's one of those schools where I'm gonna get somebody at Agnes Scott yet. I'm determined. I am determined. I am going to get someone to apply, get accepted, and go there because it's such a gem of a school for folks.
I feel the same way about that. I've gotten some to apply and got accepted, but haven't gotten over that last line. One of the things I tell students as they're walking around campus to pay attention during the tour, if they're stopping and talking to students after or things like that, is pay attention, like, especially if you're walking around and it's between classes. Are students engaging with each other? Are they talking, like, are they, walking in maybe a small group and, chatting it up? Or is everybody walking around with their head down in their phones or devices or whatever? Or is everybody walking around individually with headsets on and things like that? Because I think that says something too about kind of the culture and the engagement and how folks are interacting. And I think it's just something that I tell them to pay attention to throughout their tour, that their time on campus to see what that is like.
Yeah, that's so true because you don't want to be on a campus where it's difficult to make friends. But then again, that also means that you have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to talk to people that you don't know. You need to be willing to strike up a conversation with someone in the cafeteria. I had talked with a parent recently, and their child had transferred into a school, and the parents were really concerned because the student was eating meals by themselves. And I'm like, at that school, I don't see it. But because the student isn't very outgoing, they were having a really difficult time initiating conversations with other students. And if you're kind of quiet and standoffish and what have you, then other students may not come up to you and have a conversation. And for me, there'd be nothing worse than being on a campus with that many people and feeling alone. feeling like you don't have someone to sit down and say, hey, meet me over in the dining hall to grab something to eat. So again, one of the things I know Antoinette and I always say with our other colleagues is, find your people. You've got to find your people, and you do a lot of that by talking to the students that are out there and having those conversations. Are there any things that we missed that we need to talk about to make sure that people are uh, when they go to visit campuses? I think one of the things you had said, Antoinette, was about cultural centers. So we know with some of the situation that's happening with DEI and what have you, that a lot of cultural centers are being disbanded in some states. So again, you want to know, so if those are being disbanded, what is there for you? If you're a Jewish student, you want to know about, what is it like for Jewish students on campus? Is there a Hallel? And what else is available for me in the community? So there are so many questions to ask that you can find out by going on a campus tour. Now, as I said at the beginning, not everyone can go on a campus tour, and I don't want any student out there to feel that they won't be able to make a good choice if they don't actually go visit the school, because I know students that have enrolled in schools and have been fine and have done okay, but there's just something about stepping on that campus and getting a sense of the culture of the campus. Plus, when you're on the college campus, you get to see what the town and the city is like surrounding the campus, because you're not just going to be holed up in your dorm room all the time or on campus. You're going to leave campus. So find out, what's the neighborhood like. It's funny because I remember being at Providence College, and the way the school is set up, there's one door that you can go out, one side of the campus that you go out, and you're in a pretty, kind of nice neighborhood and what have you. And but there's another way, if you go out that way and go down the street and around the corner, yeah, you're coming to a pretty rough neighborhood, and you need to be really be aware of your surroundings, and students need to know that. Find out what's there. Is there transportation to the local retail stores if you don't have a car, or if you choose not to bring a car, or if cars aren't allowed on campus for first year students? What kind of transportation is available, like to the local Walmart or the local Target, so that you can get around if you need to. But those are some of the questions that we think are important for students to begin the conversation with people when they're visiting a campus. And we strongly encourage you to visit a campus whenever you can.
I would also just add that you can, well, two things. One, if you think you want to be pre-med, pre-health, pre-vet, that you should check out the pre-health counseling office and what they have to offer. But also, if you can't afford to take this trip somewhere far from home to look at a specific school, you probably can get in a car and see something within striking distance of where you live. And I always encourage all of my students as sophomore and beginning of junior year to just, I'm outside of Seattle, so just drive over to the University of Washington, go down to University of Puget Sound. You can see, within 3 hours of where we are, a lot of different types of schools. And to just start with that, because there's a general feel that will be similar in anything that's set up in a similar way.
Right. So true. So true. Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to add, as we talk about talking to students, also talk to them about disability services, especially for my non-traditional students. Sometimes we have students who are from the military or other spaces that they just took some time off and they need to go back to school and they need extra support. So disability services, student support services, tutoring centers, ask about those things and how students get access to that, especially you're coming from out of town and you want to know if the student center is going to stay open on the weekends when you're still on campus.
Right.
Just seek out that kind of information from just talking to other students or even talking to those departments directly.
That's so true. That's so true.
And I would add also, when you're done on campus, you've done everything. Be sure to capture your feelings. What you liked, what you didn't like. Not necessarily factual information, but really, could you see yourself there? Because that could be helpful if you decide to apply to that school. And one of their essays is, why do you want to come here? then you have actual reflections from when you were there. So I think it's always great to capture that in the moment, not after you get home.
That is so true. That is so true. And piggybacking on that, Amy, take pictures,
Yeah,
especially
that's
if you're visiting more than one campus.
mhm.
It's really nice to be able to have that visual representation. I finally learned how when I take pictures on my phone to go in and put some text on it so I'm not going back and saying, now where was that? It looks like such and such.
Mhm.
No, put the name of the place and what the name of the building before you walk away, because if not, um, they all start looking alike after a while. So we just want to make
Mhm.
sure that we know what campus we were on and what building we were looking at and what the purpose of that building is or was. So anything else that anyone would like to add?
I just wanted to say that, a lot of what we've covered here today are the same kinds of things that we look at when we're on campuses. And the reason that it's so important for us, and as part of our membership with IECA, and just to build our professional knowledge, and that is, we want to be able to help students that we work with identify schools that we think might be a good fit for them. And so as we're asking these same kinds of questions, we're not asking students to do more than what we're doing, to try to partner with them to identify schools. But I am a particular believer in, it really does start with self. And so that research, and just thinking about, reflecting on, as someone said, do I see myself here? Where would I, if I had a couple of extra hours, where would I go and sit and read a book? Where would I go and find my quiet time? Do I see places like that on this campus? Just thinking about how you would live there. And I will say, one perspective is when you're thinking about your visiting schools, you're thinking about whether or not you want to apply there. And then if you do decide to apply, and then you go back after, say, you've been admitted and it's, say, one of your top three choices that you're considering, you have an opportunity to go back, it's a different lens through which you're looking at it, because now it's real in a different way, and you're really kicking the tires and you're really tasting that food, and you're really looking at that dorm and doing measurements and things like that. So
Yes.
so as counselors, when we are asking students to do these things, it really is for a reason, and it does build. Amy, you mentioned it, the why us, why this school, why this major at this school. It all really, this is all really foundational, and it really is building on that ultimate step of, kind of applying and ultimately, deciding when you have choices. So.
Right. That is so good. Well, I am thrilled that I get the opportunity, even though it's over the little square boxes again, to have conversations with you ladies, because we don't get to see each other often enough. We typically, for folks that aren't, we're all in different states. Well, Angela and I are in the same state, but we still don't see each other in person, which is crazy. Um, but we get to see each other at conferences or on college tours, so it's nice to be able to get together and have these conversations, because we're all in this business to make things better for students and for their families, and to help them expand their options, to help them learn what type of questions to ask, because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. So part of what we do is to fill in those gaps and help you move and make those choices that where you can do your search, selection, application, and transition to college, um, with as little stress as possible. I won't say stress free, because that doesn't exist in college admission, stress free. So we just want to make sure that you have the opportunity to have options that are out there. So one of the things I'd like to do, this is Women's History Month. And those of you that know me know that I always got a book somewhere nearby. So I actually wanted to just briefly recommend two books. These are both written by local women authors here in North Carolina. And I had the opportunity to attend book discussions with both of them. And it's just so apropos that during Women's History Month, this is what their books are. So let me just go here to this screen so you can see it. So this first book called Tobacco Wives, and it's by Adele Myers. And she is originally from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which actually was a tobacco capital here in the South. So from growing up hearing stories about tobacco and stuff, when she decided to write a book, she did some research, and so this is actually a thing, Tobacco Wives. So it's historical fiction, and it's really pretty good. So it's so good that I got a chance to hear her during Women's History Month. And the other book is called Poster Girls. And again, the author is based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she's talking about this plant that manufactured bullets, that is in Charlotte. And she said it always intrigued her, so she did some research on it. So again, it's a fictional novel, but it's based around a real place and a real happening here in North Carolina. So we have Poster Girls, and we have The Tobacco Wives. And Poster Girls is by Meredith Ritchie. And these books, I mean, I'm enjoying both of them. I probably need to stop buying books, but that won't be happening anytime soon. And for anybody from IECA that may be listening, please make sure you are reading your book for our book club discussion. And that is, I can reach it. That is this book, Our Hidden Conversations, What Americans Really Think About Race and Identity. So we will be having our book discussion on April 4th. One of the nice things about this book, you do not have to read it from cover to cover to participate in the book discussion. You can actually read excerpts from it because of the way it's set up. But by reading excerpts of it, you'll get a really good idea of the book. But once you start reading it, you'll want to read the whole book. So again, that's going to be April 4th. 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's open to IECA members. And again, I encourage everyone, go to your local library, get a library card. If you don't have one, why not? So again, thank you to my esteemed co-hosts. I'm really thrilled to have you all here. And as I said, this will be something that we will be doing at least once a month. And you'll get to see us and hear from us. And if you have a particular topic that is of interest to you, let us know. Send me a message, and we'll give you some information and help you work through that particular thing. And again, anybody that's watching this on the replay, thank you so much for watching this on a replay. And you can still send your questions through YouTube or through the Facebook page. And thank you so much for being here. Any last words from anybody in the group?
Go and tour colleges.
Yes. And again, for people who maybe weren't on at the beginning, again, we would like to give a shout out, congratulations to Angela Bird and April Paris Joseph on becoming professional members of the Independent Educational Consultants Association. And yay for our colleagues. We really are so happy for them and thrilled for them in having that designation now. So ladies, I guess it's good night for us, and I will probably see some of you in Connecticut at our next conference. So we will see there. So hang on. So folks, thank you so much, and please tune in next week. My guest next week is Carter J., a young entrepreneur who's going to tell us about his journey from getting a GED to now becoming an entrepreneur, working in marketing and branding. So again, that's next Monday, March 18th, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will see you then. Take care, everyone.